All right, guys, welcome back to another video. And the time has come, it has gone. We have the Xbox business update, and I will talk about a bunch of stuff. There may be multiple videos because there's lots of things to cover. But the reality of the situation is the major rumors that I would say got the people most crazy online ended up not being true. And those rumors were Starfield coming over to PlayStation 5, as well as things like Call of Duty not coming into Game Pass and ABK games essentially not coming into Game Pass, as well as Game Pass completely being redone and taking away day-and-date games and hardware going away and all those things. All of that was not true. The rumors were blown out of proportion. But one of the main things that people were focused on when these rumors did come out was the games and what is Xbox going to be doing with their games. How many of them are going to be going multi-platform, if any? And we got all of those answers here from this Xbox business update. So if you missed it, Phil Spencer came out and he said there are going to be 4 games going over to the other consoles, and that those games we don't know. He didn't name them, but they're going to be 2 live service games and then 2 smaller games, and they've all been out for at least a year. So if you sit back, you think about it, the games they probably are Sea of Thieves, Grounded, I would say Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush. Those are probably the 4 games that are going to be going over to PlayStation and to the Nintendo Switch. And Phil Spencer talked about it, but he also went into a deeper interview with Tom Warren of The Verge, where we get more information about everything that was said at the Xbox business update. The Xbox business update was pre-recorded. It wasn't a live podcast. It was just about a 22-minute video that they did release at 3 p.m. today. So when it comes to the Xbox exclusives, here are some of the questions that Tom Warren asked. And I mean, there is a lot of stuff here that to go over. So I will probably break this up because this interview is very interesting and insightful. And he first asks the question, why is publishing more games on multiple platforms key to improving the long-term success at Xbox? And here's what Phil says. He says, the games themselves have just a great opportunity to grow. When you find a successful game that's working, that's finding great customers on our Xbox console, on PC, you think about, how do I make sure those game franchises continue to grow? He says we can invest in them, they can continue to thrive and find new customers. The software part of the business is an easier part of the business to grow and scale. It becomes more about access, but how do the bits actually get to the screen? And even some business model access. For us, it's Game Pass plus retail. There are obviously plenty of free to play games on Xbox, but I'd say the business model diversity of giving people more choice and how they build their library, our platform needs to enable those things. So for Xbox, it's about all these subscribers to Game Pass, which, by the way, we now know is at 34 million subscribers. They did also confirm that. And then obviously the buying of games model. And we've seen that play out with Xbox Game Pass, with some of the numbers that do come out, is that people actually go and buy games after playing them on Xbox Game Pass. So you get the best of both worlds here in the Xbox ecosystem, at least from the business perspective, where you have people double dipping. You have people subscribing to Game Pass and then also going out and playing games. And I know that's what I do. I spend tons of money on those Xbox sales that they put out, where you get a nice discount on games, and you also get an extra discount if you're already subscribed to Xbox Game Pass, if it's a game that you've liked in the service. So I do both. They get double dip for me every single month almost, where I purchase some stuff and then I pay for my subscription fee. Then he continues on here and says, and then I think the games themselves on top of that have just an incredible opportunity to reach billions of players that are out there. You can see something like the launch of Palworld in the last month, right? It's effectively one game that was built. They continue to update it and is finding just massive numbers of players on Xbox and PC. Games just have the ability to continue to grow, and we want to make sure that our games as part of Xbox are one of the strongest parts of what Xbox is about. So he's emphasizing here the games. He's not emphasizing the box on where you play these games. And that isn't doom and gloom. That isn't bad news, because they do also talk about the future of hardware, which I will go over probably in a different video. But it's about the games, not really where you play these games, but the Xbox branding on these games that you do play, right? So if it's an Xbox game, and you're playing it on a PlayStation, maybe at some point in the future, people will know that it's an Xbox developed game, and then it helps grow out what Xbox is about, and it helps grow out their brand. Now he continues on here. Another question is, if the goal is more people playing games and more people discovering them, why just these 4 games and not more? Now, this is a big question that people have. He asks, you say you want to learn from these, but surely if they're hugely successful and you see that more people are playing them, then you'll do more in the future, right? And the reality is there may be more games other than these 4 going over to PlayStation and to the Nintendo Switch, or the Nintendo Switch to whatever they launch next. And Phil says this, yeah, but we haven't seen that yet. We are obviously one of the biggest publishers on PlayStation and Nintendo today when you think about the Activision, Blizzard, and Bethesda lineup of games. So we know what it means to ship games on Steam, PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox. And I mean, that is a really funny thing to think about, especially when you think about the last week of all of the craziness from the rumors that popped up. The reality is right now, Xbox is still, even if none of these games, these 4 games don't go over, they are still one of the biggest publishers on these competing platforms, because just by the sheer amount of studios that they do have now, when you add in the Bethesda and the ABK games, I mean, all their games are still already on those platforms. So this really isn't anything new by putting 4 more games, or even in the future, more games onto PlayStation and Nintendo if those do well. He says here, these are games that originally launched on Xbox. They were Xbox branded games, and we want to see what happens, because going and doing the development work to bring them to new platforms is real work. We want to make sure that the return makes sense. We want to make sure that the audience, that there's an appetite. And maybe they don't have that appetite. If they're not picking up the games and playing them, that will be something that definitely deters Xbox from going out there and putting out more titles. So if you're a PlayStation fanboy, or you're a PlayStation fan, or a Nintendo fan, and you want more Xbox games, you're going to have to go out there and purchase those games, so they get the signal that they will be bringing in more money for Xbox. Continues here and says, we'll also watch what happens on Xbox as well. Our goal would be that the communities of those games grow and they thrive, but we'll see. And I guess the same thing can be said if you're an Xbox fan. If you don't care, I mean, this it won't really matter to you. Like, I don't care if people on PlayStation play Xbox games. I don't care if people on Nintendo play Xbox games, but there are just really, really big console fanboys out there for Xbox, and Xbox fans that don't want anybody on any other platform, any other console playing Xbox games. And the reality is, the only way that you would have any say in that happening wouldn't be by yelling into the void on social media, because I don't think that actually makes really any difference. But it would be just by not purchasing Xbox games anymore, because that's how they're going to measure this. But I'll tell you what I think is going to happen. This is my opinion, of course. This putting their games onto Nintendo and PlayStation is going to make these studios more money. It's going to get more player base to these games, especially multiplayer and live service games. And we are going to end up seeing more Xbox games on those platforms, because the outrage from the vocal minority on social media against this will have no effect on how successful this plan is. I can almost guarantee you that, because that's generally what happens when stuff like this comes up, even with the rumors. I mean, I'm wrapped up in the social media. I make YouTube videos on a daily basis talking about this stuff. So I'm really in the weeds when it comes to gaming, Xbox, the industry, and what is going on. I love learning about this stuff. And I even get wrapped up sometimes reading through the just insane threads on Twitter. And then I start thinking, man, is this actually representative as to the reality of the situation? You just got to turn off Twitter, turn off social media, and step back and realize it isn't. And all of the yelling and the craziness isn't going to determine what Xbox does here, because the casual, not even just the casual, just the average person who doesn't have time to follow everything that is going on, probably didn't even know that this was an update today that was happening, aren't going to care if people on PlayStation or Nintendo get to play a few games, or even a large catalog of Xbox games. All they're going to care about is, can they still access their games wherever they want to access those games? And we can tell that Xbox is committed more than ever to bringing that, which I think is a great thing. Now, he ends off this part saying, we'll see what happens when we take games that launched originally on Xbox and PC and bring them over to other consoles, other close platforms. We don't know. We've done it a couple times. Obviously, Ori went over to the Switch after we launched. We've launched Psychonauts 2 on both platforms and launched Minecraft Dungeons and Minecraft Legends on both platforms simultaneously. So we have some data about what happens there. We just want to make sure it's good for the long-term health of Xbox. So obviously the whole case-by-case basis things, he doesn't say it, which I think was really smart because I probably would have pissed a lot of people off. But the reality is that's what's happening here. They're going to be looking at every single game here. And I'm sure they do their profit and loss analysis and see what makes sense for certain games to go over, what doesn't make sense. And the one thing we are seeing right now in this industry that is happening all the time is that the studios just aren't making enough money. They just aren't, because the development costs are going up and it's more expensive now to develop games. And one way to offset that, to try to make more money, is putting your games in more places. Because at the end of the day, it's either these studios make more money or there could potentially be more bad things happening in the industry with it shrinking, layoffs, games getting canceled, studios being closed, IPs getting canceled. All of these things could happen. So what would you rather, that or games being put on to other platforms to potentially offset that? Now, the question here, Indiana Jones and Starfield, because Starfield mainly, but also Indiana Jones was a big one here about those games. The question was, the rumors were just blowing things way out of proportion. That's what really kicked things off. People were going, like, debating Hi-Fi Rush. Some people were against, some people were for it. And there were definitely good reasons on both sides of the arguments for a Hi-Fi Rush. I don't think that one got too crazy. I think that was actually like a normal discussion online. But when Starfield hit and the rumors came out and the Xbox Era article dropped, everything went crazy. And Phil touches on this here. And basically, there's still a chance that these games could come over, but just definitely not right now. They are not in the cards with these 4 games. He says here, I don't think we should, as an industry, ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience, but I don't want to create a false expectation on those other platforms that this is somehow the first 4 to get over to the dam, and then the dam's going to open and that everything else is coming. That's not the plan today. I also don't want to mislead customers on those other platforms. We're launching these 4 games. We're excited about it. We're excited about the announce and everything else, but we'll see what happens for our business. So doesn't say they aren't, doesn't say they are, but just right now it is not in the plans. And also reiterates that if you're on PlayStation or Nintendo, you shouldn't be expecting every single Xbox game coming over to those platforms. So this is a completely different way that they communicated their plan with the case-by-case basis and their exclusivity, because at the Bethesda roundtable, nobody walked away from that roundtable thinking that games would ever be going anywhere that Xbox Game Pass wasn't there or wasn't available. And now with this new update, with this new communication, you can walk away from this and say, hey, in a year from now, if Starfield ends up on PlayStation 5 or the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they do put out, you now aren't going to feel like that it came out of left field and it came out of nowhere because of this update in communication. So that's pretty much the overall sentiment here with what is happening with the games in terms of multi-platform. And I think, honestly, like, this strategy, with the way that we are seeing the industry, from what we heard from when PlayStation came out, it is not a bad strategy. It's not Xbox killing the brand, or it's not them killing the console, because they did talk more about the hardware, and that will be in an upcoming video. It is Xbox realizing that the industry has changed and they want to be at the forefront of the industry. They want to be the leaders, and they're continuing to grow. And most people don't care if a PlayStation gamer or a Nintendo gamer gets to play an Xbox first party game. All they care about is if they can access the games on the Xbox that they want to access it on, or on the screen that they want to access it on. So that was, in my opinion, just really all the doom and gloom about the first party games. That essentially ended up being a nothing burger at the end of the day with this business meeting. But I will end the video there, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Are you excited about the future of Xbox? Did this business update make you feel worse about Xbox? I'd love to hear all your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Bye.